I'm Thomas of Meaningful Gigs, and welcome back to Heroes of the Creative Revolution. In this episode, I speak with Gary Goldsmith of Instagram about building trust and using humor as a superpower at work. He talks about how he initially got into comedy and started using humor to his advantage, the importance of building trust for team efficiency, how he maintains his creativity in a corporate setting, and much more. Let's dive in. Hey Gary, thanks so much for coming on the show today. Really appreciate you taking the time to come and speak with me and, share your knowledge with the guests today.
Yeah, super excited to be here. Thanks for having me, Thomas.
Of course. Let's just start simple and, we'd love to learn more about you and your background.
Sure. So, hey everybody, my name is Gary Goldsmith. I'm a design program manager at Meta currently on the Instagram Integrity team. I live in New York, in the suburbs of New York now, because I have 2 children. I've been at Meta for 5 years. Prior to that, I worked in the advertising industry for my entire career, where I worked across the healthcare and other industries within advertising in New York. I have a deep kind of background in program and project management. I left advertising as a group director of a company that was called Possible. And so I was the head of a program management department as a people manager then. And now I'm over in design operations at Meta on Instagram.
That's great. And I'm curious, where are you originally from?
Yeah, sure. I'm originally from, I was born in New York. Proud, but I moved to New Jersey, or my parents moved to New Jersey when I was younger. So I grew up in a town called Montclair, New Jersey, which has become a very popular town for people from Brooklyn. But I now live in White Plains, which is directly above the city, and I moved here in 2018. 2018, because I have 2 sons, Theo and Miles, who are now 4 and 7, and we moved here from Brooklyn when our son Theo was a year and a half old, which is a very a tale as old as time, I think, of people moving out of the city around that time with kids. And I should also mention, I have a stutter, so if you see me pausing or sort of like tilting my head, that's just a result of my stutter, which I will probably talk about a lot today anyway. So just a quick heads up for anyone who is observing or hearing this today. Yeah.
Let's dive into humor, because I hear you're a funny guy. You got the chops, comedic chops. Let's I'm curious, what role does humor have specifically in your life?
Oh man, what a question. So, I'm gonna go back. So, I think I was kind of born to be just a goofy guy. So my dad introduced me to, I don't even know if you're gonna know these references, but Mad Magazine, Cracked Magazine, when I was probably way too young. I was watching Saturday Night Live and Mad TV since elementary school, and growing up, I listened to a lot of Chris Rock and Adam Sandler albums. So that's sort of the kind of baseline for my humor. Growing up, as a person and as a child at that time who does stutter, I think my coping kind of mechanism for that was always to take things with a side of humor and sort of be the funny guy, which ultimately ended up with me being class clown of my senior year high school class. No big deal. But yeah, so I think me having that humor bone combined with this, my stutter really allowed me to, or encouraged me to, empowered me to, however you want to say it, sort of lean into that. And so I've always sort of leaned into humor in my life, which ultimately ended up being a way I got into comedy. So growing up, I never really, even though my mom always pushed me to do plays and get on stages, it never really translated to a reality for me as a kid, because I just never thought I could do it. I didn't want to put myself and my stutter out there. But in my mid-20s, my younger sister after years of me going to improv shows in college and like being obsessed with comedy and improv comedy, my younger sister was like, just take an improv class. And she really pushed me to do it with stronger language than that. And I did, and it completely changed my life. And so in 2010, I started taking improv classes. I had an improv team for many years. And since there, I have like really leaned into really kind of leveraging improv and comedy in my life and in the workspace. So yeah, I mean, I could talk about that forever, but I think we'll probably get into it. But that's sort of like my humor side and a big part of who I am.
No, thanks for that. It's super interesting. Speaking to your work at Meta, I'm hoping to understand, let's talk about team trust. Like, how are you really establishing team trust? What are the best approaches that you've done to do this effectively? And what are the benefits of that for the design team, the operations team, and the organization at large?
Sure. So that's a great question. So I think today I'm going to talk a lot about humor as a way that I lean into establishing trust with my teams and my peers. But I think the real theme here is going to be humanizing us as coworkers and humanizing each other as people coming together to do corporate things together. Because I think what happens a lot, I mean, at my company, but at any company, I mean, I've worked at, this is my 7th corporation that I have had a job at. And I think what happens is, when we work together at work, you feel like you're just doing the work, right? And everyone gets caught up in we are business people doing business stuff. Underneath all that, we are humans that have lives outside of work that bring a lot to the table beyond just we are business corporate drones. So I happen to use humor to pull out the human in people and pull out that sort of human. That is what enables trust. So, for tactical examples, so in my world now, I get brought in to a lot of big either company-wide or Instagram-wide initiatives. And so I'm constantly meeting new people that I have to collaborate with and creating new teams to create solutions to product problems. And these are all people that, some people might know each other, they might know each other's work, but we're constantly recreating what teams look like together. So, when I jump into a meeting with a new person, sometimes they'll just start jumping into the brief. They'll be like, all right, we're here today to do X, Y, Z. We're going to do this. And I will literally stop a meeting and say, whoa. Where do you live? Because we're talking through a computer. I see you in a room right now. But I don't know where you are. I don't know what's surrounding you. I don't know what you're bringing into that meeting in terms of how you're feeling, what's going on in your life. And not that I have to dig into the problems of your life, but I think just pausing for a second, taking that single step back to meet and greet, and that could take a lot of different forms, will pay off in dividends literally 3 minutes after that. I think when you start to get to know each other a little bit more, and again, it doesn't have to be tell me your whole life story, but it can be the simple thing. This might sound simple, but I think people forget to do it. How was your weekend? Oh, I heard you have 2 kids. How old are they? What's going on in their lives? How's camp going? Whatever it is, it's the smallest things. I think when a lot of people are not doing those small things, it makes a huge difference when the few people do. And I think that is where operations people can play a meaningful role. So I'm happy to give more tangible examples if you want, though.
Why not? Let's go into it. I mean, I think it's a super interesting topic. And as you say, we are people working with people, and it's super advantageous and important to be able to relate and have that trust first, and then have the wonderful work built upon that as a foundation. So if you have more examples, I'd love to dive more.
Sure. Yeah. So we do, and then I actually will talk about actually this will sort of get into like humorous kind of ways, because that one I just talked about is really just like truly like anyone can and should do what I just said, which is like, don't jump into a brief. Like you have time to jump into briefs. Like align as humans first, right? So that's done. But let's talk about examples. So when I do a lot of consulting internally, and I'm sort of brought into a lot of like sprints and different like workshops to help get them going. Obviously, as a operations person, I'm also like planning how we're doing them and like what that process looks like. But I am brought in a lot to kick off things. Because I think what happens a lot with different sprints or workshops, again, when you're bringing people together that have never met before, is, as a project lead, they might just want to get to it, and they're getting to it. In their getting to it, they know, yes, we have to do some kind of icebreaker. Yes, we have to do some kind of like alignment. But I think a lot of times I've seen that alignment and icebreaker being a picture on a screen of everyone in the meeting, like each person in the meeting on a screen with like their favorite color or like when their birthday is, and it's like, sure, that's fine, but like, what does that tell you? That tells you almost nothing about that person. That doesn't go deep. I think for me, it's about tweaking that intro to not be surface level and be a little bit deeper. And again, I don't mean go too deep that it's intrusive, but like, how can you get people out of their business mind and into a humanizing mind that will enable deeper trust as you're coming together to collaborate together on something. So instead of screen, picture of person, favorite color, tell us about your favorite color. I suggest, icebreakers, I don't love that term, but I think they help a lot. And I think the right icebreaker is great. Like, what's your best memory from childhood? What's the funniest moment in your life that you can remember? What's the favorite meal that you make at home, that your family makes? Like small things like that are literally like way outside of the realm of work, but bring a deeper connection to chicken parm. I love chicken parmesan. That's amazing. It's like that immediate connection. Again, maybe it sounds silly, but like those small connections mean everything. In my case, I bring, as I was saying, I do improv comedy, and I train corporate on how to use improv in the workspace. So a lot of times when I'm brought in to kick off things, I will actually move away from typical like icebreakers and just talking, and I will literally like get people out of their seat, and I'll do exercises that are collaborative and allow people to do something together that is different than work. And so what that might look like is I do an activity called Activates. So picture 20 people in a room that are all different functions, content designers, product designers, strategy people, all these people in a room. They don't really know each other. Everyone out of your seat. Let's go over here to the corner. Let's all circle up, and we're going to shake our arm, count to 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, our left arm. And we count our arms together. And people are like, what the hell is going on here? Like, what is happening? But you see, as you start doing these like strange out of the box activities together, or outside of the box, I should say, not out of the box, but these small outside of the box activities together, you see people start to like break down that sort of like corporate like wall, and they become human. We could play a classic improv game called Zip Zap Zop, which is, passing a zip zap zop to each other while connecting eyeballs and looking each other in the face. There's a game where you can clap. 2 people can clap at the same time together. There's a game where you can count to 10 as a group without assigning any kind of numbers. I could go on forever, but there's so many different things you could do to make people step outside of their corporate selves to be a human, in order to boom, enable, all right, now let's go to the brief, let's talk through it. And you see just the walls come down. The walls are down, people are more open to collaborating, communicating. I'm gonna stop there because I'm talking forever and I could talk about that for a long time. But yeah, that's just some examples of how I've done this in the past, or how we do it now.
Gotcha. No, that all sounds really fun too. And I definitely played a version of the game where you try to count to 10, like without assigning numbers, and it's fun. Like when you get to 7 and 8 and get two people to say the same, it's like start over.
Yeah, exactly. Then you got to go back to the beginning. Exactly.
Yeah, really fun. Let's talk about what happens when you don't build trust, and like what are the repercussions when you don't actually invest in doing these things that you're saying and like creating that human connection versus that trust. How does that impact the work and like the relationships moving forward?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I work in design. I mean, even in the advertising industry, I would say I worked in design because we were creating things that were going out into the world. And design is a lot of things, but above everything else, it's collaborative. Like no design is created by one single human, right? So for designers or really in like any team environment, product teams or non-product teams, there are like any number of cross-functional partners that need to like work together. And I think, people might know each other's work, or they might know each other's like reputation, or maybe they don't know each other at all. So like creating those connections is, in my opinion, one of the most important things you can do up front at the onset of a project. Because what happens is if you do not, and I'll talk about what happens when you do, if you do not, you will find timelines extending, people really kind of butting heads because they only see each other as what they see the corporate selves to be. And they're like, oh, well, your team, let's just an example, but like your team's priorities and your incentives are this, and your team's priorities and incentives are this, versus like, how can we talk through this as people to like work through those problems that we're seeing? And I think when you don't develop that trust and you don't develop that mindset of being open to others' ideas, you get a lot of people butting heads and they're not really hearing each other's ideas and each other's goals, which is going to ultimately lead to thrash and potentially escalations to kind of leadership. Because what happens is when people build trust together, they feel they can have spicy conversations. They feel they can actually collaborate to talk through and work through whatever problems come up. And again, when you don't develop that trust, the opposite happens. So yeah, I think that answers the question. But, well, actually, I guess I will ask you, does that answer your question?
It does, yeah.
Okay, can I talk really quickly about operations people? I mean, I am an ops person, and I think a lot of operations people get sort of like pigeonholed or stereotyped as, non-creative people. And they're just there to, do the schedules, do the financials, do the like telling people what to do, which, is not really always the case and is like generally not the case. But I think actually, given that framing of our role, of being like the people that are telling people what to do, I think we're already, as operations people, in a position where we have to like be vulnerable a bit, because we are the ones coming into rooms telling clients that we ran out of budget, we need more budget. We're the ones coming into rooms telling people like, this is the schedule, this is how tight the schedule is. Like, we are basically the ones that have to sometimes deliver like not so comfortable or like information that a lot of, in my case, like designers may not want to hear a schedule. A lot of designers may not want to create a new process for doing things, even though like we've proven that's going to be more efficient, blah, blah, blah. So in my opinion, operations people are actually the perfect people to tweak culture, tweak how we approach humanizing each other as colleagues and kind of business partner. And I say that because, I'm talking here as someone who's done comedy before, but that does not necessarily mean that every operations person has to do comedy in order to bring like human like kind of nature and vulnerability into a room. I think we are actually perfectly positioned to do that in our own way, because we're already having to be vulnerable as as ops people. So anyway, I just wanted to say that because I just want to make sure anyone who's observing today or like hearing this or in the future does not say like, yeah, but you do comedy, so this is all you. It's like, we all do comedy in our own way, trust me. It's just I happen to have done improv on the stage, but that's it. Anyway, I just wanted to say that.
No, that was really good. And it's good to like kind of set the record straight on like the ops person and like their role within like how they're using these skills that sound maybe foreign at first, but like no, it's part of the job, it's part of the course. And once you kind of acknowledge it and focus on it, then you have the opportunity to really develop and improve. So I think that's really critical for you to call out.
Exactly. It's that intention, I think. It's like, oh, I can't do that, or like that's too big. It's like you're already being vulnerable. Just like maybe be intentional about team connection and like and again, I'm not talking about doing whole programs, doing big things. It's like these small tweaks at the beginning of meetings and things like that, they make a big difference. Anyway, I digress on that.
For you, what's been the biggest either design or creative challenge you faced in your career, and how'd you overcome that?
Whew. Okay, so being the person that you see in front of you, I have a lot of energy. I've always sort of been this person, and I think for me, over my career, 16 plus year career at this point, my biggest creative challenge as an operations person has been how to maintain creativity in my ops role. I was a people manager for many, many years. And, in that role, I got a lot of really great feedback at being good at listening, being a very supportive people manager. And I think that has allowed me to sort of lean into being intentional about being myself, because the like years of being a people manager, I had training of being a people manager by just like being a manager, but like no, I didn't take classes. I didn't get trained on it. I just observed how other managers I liked were good at it, and I were like, okay, I can like kind of leverage that approach. I can approach things like that, and then that mixed with my personality has been very helpful. So I have been able to like lean into the creative challenge of being creative in my role by just being myself. And I think, I have built this unique opportunity to bring this improv mindset and improv training into the workspace. I created a side hustle a while ago that I called Improv at Work, where, I had a job in advertising, but on the side, I was being hired by different companies to come in and run trainings. And I think that was like, oh, wow, I'm a group director of project management here, where I have a very serious job. I'm doing pitches. I'm, creating scopes of work. I'm responding to like RFPs. But then on the side, I'm coming into rooms and teaching people how to be clowns. And it was like amazing. And like that for me is how I've overcome that being my biggest creative challenge, was how to like fully be me in a corporate environment. And that's proven impactful for the people I surround myself with too, as I've talked about this entire time, is like me bringing that, trickles out, I've been told and observed.
Great. And then I'm curious, where do you get your inspiration from on the day-to-day basis, or it doesn't have to be on a day-to-day basis in general? Who in the design ops space, design leaders, creative ops, even creative leaders, do you admire and draw inspiration from?
Yeah, so I have really loved the career transitions I've made. And frankly, being in advertising for as long as I was, I had no idea what else was out in the world. I think you get sort of, or I got very like singularly minded of, I'm in advertising, this is all that exists. As a project manager, this is all I can do. But in my last sort of like year or so in advertising, I went on a very deep career journey to understand how the skills of project management can be transferable in other industries to other types of roles. And I think that has proven to be the biggest positive I had in my whole career so far, is being able to find those opportunities and be able to actually coach other people and kind of mentor other people to think differently about their experiences and think differently about, the job that they do and how that can actually be useful in other industries or in other roles. So the people I admire the most are people who've been able to pivot their experiences in nuanced, kind of ways that expand their skill sets and sellability as a potential candidate to a company or just as a individual. So specifically, there is a woman named Courtney Kaplan, who pretty much started the DesignOps department, if you want to call it that, at Meta. And she has since pivoted to becoming a leadership coach. And I just admire the fact that she can parlay those types of experience she's had as a DesignOps lead into roles like that. And then I think just in the design operations space, which I think is a very interesting, still growing area, people who set the groundwork, like Kristen Skinner and Peter Merholtz, who sort of and did write the book on DesignOps, and then people more recently, people like Meredith Black and Elise Eschel, who started the DesignOps assembly community, which I think, community is a massive part of, I talk a lot about keeping a network and growing your network as a big part of how you can have career resilience. And I think they have created a massive network of DesignOps people with the intention of a community. So I think, that is great too, because they are now using DesignOps to grow communities of DesignOps. And anyone else who does stuff like that. So I would say those people are people that I think about when I ask that question, or when I ask that question.
Yeah, no, that's a great list of people. We've had Kristen and Peter on our show, and Meredith as well.
Nice.
We recorded her episode last week, so that'll be coming out soon.
There you go. Wow, I didn't even know that. That's amazing.
Yeah. So honestly, that was my last question. Is there anything else that you wanted to say or plug before we say goodbye?
Yeah, so I talk a lot about how improv and it is good for corporate America, any employee, anyone on a collaborative environment. But my wife and I actually started a business where we're teaching improv to kids. So we are actually I live in Westchester, so we started a company called Unthinkable Comedy, where we teach improv to kids so that kids can learn how to collaborate, how to listen to each other, how to create ideas off of others' ideas and their own. So it's a real social and emotional learning through comedy. And yeah, we just launched that last year, and we've been loving seeing the growth we see in kids. So if you're curious about that, go to unthinkablecomedy.com. So we have the kids classes, and then as I said, we also teach corporate. So anyone wants a workshop, hit us up. We got a staff ready for you. So yeah, that's that. But the last words is human. We're all human people doing human things. A lot of us doing human things. A lot of us collaborating to create products for humans. So let's be human together while building human products for humans. That's my last word. How about that?
That's very well said, and we'll include links to both of your side hustles in the episode notes. And if you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to like and subscribe on whatever platform you're enjoying on. Thanks for tuning in.